Hi, and welcome to Our People, the podcast where we give space for Holdeman Stories. We focus on hope, healing, and inspiration. Connection, consciousness, and love are the driving motivations for this project. Remember to have grace for those who have chosen to speak out and share their experience. Please enjoy the story you will hear today.
Welcome to Our People's podcast. Today, I am your host, Amanda, and with me, I have Rosina Friesen. So, Rosina, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am Rosina Friesen, as she said, and I am now living in Peace River, Alberta. I grew up in the little community of Crooked Creek, Alberta. I'm sure there's been other stories from Crooked Creek. I've listened to some of them. And I was born in 1950, so you can guess how old I am. I was the third child in a family of 9 kids. And my mother, of course, was a very, very busy woman. And I learned a lot about taking care of little ones, and I helped with all the stuff that went on in the growing up years, my growing up years. I know that going to church was a big part of our life in the Holdeman Church. And yes, we would always go to church on Sunday morning, sometimes Sunday evening, often Wednesday evening, there was a Bible study. So church was a big part of our social life. I did attend a public school at my age. There were no private schools at that time. So going to public school was what we did. And it went very well. I had very good friends there. There were other Holdemans in the school. It was quite a big school. And so, it was good. We maybe did get a little bit of teasing because we always wore dresses. And I remember one girl asked me if all I had to wear was a skirt and pullover. Like, my mother would buy clothes at a secondhand store because she couldn't keep on sewing for 6 girls all the time. No, 7 girls. And so we would sometimes buy clothes at the secondhand store. And one girl would say, well, is that all you have to wear? Because Mom would buy skirts and pullovers. They were warm for cold winters up here. And I said, yeah, that's pretty well all I have to wear. She couldn't understand that, she was not from the church and she wore pants. And why would you just wear that? But otherwise, no, I had a good time in school. I had good teachers. I don't feel like it was a hard time at all. And basically, my upbringing went very well. I felt like I was in a home where my parents loved me. They were very busy, of course, and my dad was often gone working in a sawmill in the winter or else working on construction crews in summer. So I don't feel like I ever really got close to him. I got to know him when I was a child. And it was more like a father figure who came home on weekends, and Mom would say, when we're not behaving during the week, well, maybe dad will have to deal with you on the weekend. So giving me that father figure who was the bad man, the one who's going to punish us. But Mom did the best she could with all the kids, and I admire her for doing what she did. And when I was about 11, 12, in that age, 11, 12, 13, there was a big upheaval in the Crooked Creek Church, the Rosedale Church. There were quite a number of people who decided that they were going to leave the church. They did not believe in the one true church. One couple was my grandparents, one couple was my uncle and aunt, and they had both been, my grandpa had been a deacon in the church, my uncle had been a minister in the church. And to me, it was very confusing what was going on. My dad almost left the church. He was, wondering what was happening here too, and he was questioning things. But then he said he had a vision of God showing him that this was the right church for him, I guess. So we ended up staying in the church. And Mom said she really prayed during that time because there was no way she wanted to leave the church. And so she feels that her prayers maybe kept Dad from leaving the church. But yes, it was a confusing time for a young girl like me. And there'd be revival meetings, and there'd be lots of council meetings to do with these people wanting to leave not agreeing with all the church doctrines. And here I knew I should join the church because that's all I knew. I knew that was the only true church. I would go to hell if I didn't join it. And so I did stand up at one meeting and to show that I decided to live for God. I think I was about 11. Then the next year, I kind of I don't know, I was confused. I don't know, do I want to be a Christian? Do I want to join this church? What do I want to do? And this stuff was still going on, all this upheaval. Then that finally kind of settled down. Some of them were expelled and they left the church. And when I was 13, I decided, yes, I'm going to become a member of this church. So I ended up joining at the age of 13. I don't feel like I had a very vivid experience about it, although I do remember one night as we were walking home. We lived out in the country, and sometimes the roads were very bad in spring, and we had to park our car and walk a little ways home because there was a stream of water running over the road, and so we couldn't get across. And so I remember walking home and just feeling like all of a sudden it just felt like God's peace was just over me. The moonlight was bright, and it was just a beautiful time of walking and just feeling God's presence. That I just felt like, God was with me. He was my Savior. Jesus had saved me, and I was a child. So time went on, and my parents decided to move further north yet to Fort Vermilion, which is way up. So that was about maybe 7-8 hours from Crooked Creek. So we moved up there when I was 15, and I was in the youth then, but there weren't many youth up there. But those of us that were just kind of didn't really do the normal things that youth do in the Holdeman Church. We just went for winter roast by the river and just had some good times together. Didn't do a lot. We didn't have organized youth meeting. It was a small congregation. It had started up as a mission post kind of, and there was a children's home there where they were taking care of First Nations children. But I enjoyed living up there. I enjoyed it. It was something exciting, and yeah, I thought it was a good place to live. I was always wanting to be a nurse, and that was one profession or vocation that the church approved of. So, but I only had my grade 9 when I left Fort Vermilion, and there was no high school in Fort Vermilion to go to, and we lived 10 miles from town, which at that time was a long way. And I thought, well, I can't go to school in Fort Vermilion. There was a Catholic school, but I couldn't go there. That would have been a bad place to go. I might have become a Catholic or something. I don't know what. There was definitely no. I was not encouraged to go there. Then when I turned 17, I could go to a town called La Crete, which was about half an hour from Fort Vermilion. There was a bus running that year from Fort Vermilion to La Crete, and they had a high school. So I ended up moving into Fort Vermilion with my sister who was working in town. And I took the bus to La Crete every day and took my grade 10. Because I was determined I was going to have my grade 10. Why I didn't take correspondence, I don't know. I guess I just kind of rebelled at that. I wanted to go to school. I loved going to school. So anyways, I took my grade 10 and was very happy I could do that, which I needed for taking nurse training. Then I finished grade 10 and I worked for a year in the local hospital in Fort Vermilion, just as what they called a ward aide at that time. They call them healthcare aides now. I learned on the job and really got a taste of what nursing could be like. So I did that for a year, and I earned money to pay for my tuition, etc., to go into nurses training. And then when I was 19, I went down to the big city of Calgary, which was way down southern Alberta, and I took my nurses training. Now that was a culture shock. going into the big city after being in Fort Vermilion. I was like, what am I doing here? But I managed. I learned to get around the city by bus. And there were other Holdomans in Calgary. And that was one reason I chose that place to go to training, because I could go with them to the town, to the congregation of Linden, Alberta. I'd go there on weekends and spend time with my relatives there, and etc. And then go back to training on Monday morning. So that worked out very well. Did you want to say something?
Yeah. So was it LPN or RN? Were you going for?
Oh, sorry, LPN.
Okay. And is that a
Yeah.
year or two?
1 year at that time. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Okay, continue.
Yeah, so I was in my LPN training. And yes, as I said, I could go to church from there. That was all very well. And I could, I sometimes associated with some of the Holdemans that were in town during the week. I think we even had a Bible study going once in a while. I had a very good cousin who was a very good friend of mine. He was taking some training there for part of the time in the trades college. And so him and I would do stuff together, and that was great. Then when I finished training, the first part of my training I took in the college, what they had for the LPNs. Then the second part of my training, I was in a hospital, and I stayed in the nurse's dorm at this hospital. And during that time, I made friends with another girl that was in training with me. And she was a Christian, not a Holdeman, but definitely a Christian. And so I really enjoyed that and had a good time with her. Yes, so I took my training, and then I went back to Fort Vermilion and worked there again. I was lonesome for home, and I wanted to be back there and be with my friends there. And during that time was when Herman came on the scene. He was homesteading up there, and was getting a homestead, starting homesteading. And he would sometimes be involved with a youth there. He was in the church part of the time I was there, or he was there. And then he ended up, and that's when I started getting a crush on him. And I was hoping that maybe, sometime. But I guess he didn't think the same way, and he ended up leaving the church. And I thought, okay, there go my dreams of marrying a homesteader and raising half a dozen kids. I was going to have, half a dozen kids.
Okay.
That was the thing. Yeah, that was the thing. We had big families, right?
Yeah.
I came from a big family, and everybody else had big families if they could, and that was just how it was. So yeah, I was going to have at least half a dozen kids. Everybody else, had lots. Why wouldn't I? And so, but he decided, I guess, that he was going to.
Well, after speaking with Herman the other day, I'm going to guess he just wasn't aware of your intentions, because had he been aware of your intentions, you might have had an in there.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's too bad that didn't work out, but God knows what it was supposed to end up being. So anyways, I worked there for about a year or so, and then I decided I'm going to go work at Linden. I went to work at the nursing home in Linden. And I was adventurous, and I wasn't just going to stay at one spot all the time. I decided, well, it doesn't look like I'm getting married, and I'll do other things. I worked in BC. My parents had moved to BC when I was 21. They kind of did a bit of moving to another place that was so different than Fort Vermilion. And they had moved there, and I went and worked at the Bellhaven home, which is run by the church there. I worked there for a while. I worked in, like I said, Linden, Fort Vermilion. I even worked at the children's home at Fort Vermilion for about a year and a half. Did all these good things like a good Holdeman girl does. And went to Mexico as a missionary for 4 years. I spent 4 years in Mexico. Came home in between, of course, but I spent time in Chihuahua and in Sinaloa. And then I ended up even going to Belize for 2 years. The first part, mostly in Mexico, I mostly was house help, but I also taught some missionary children for a while. In Belize, I was just a school teacher. I taught missionary children in the first year, and then the second year I taught local people the parents were coming to church, and I taught those, and that was fun. I really enjoyed that because the one girl didn't even know English when she started school. She just knew Spanish. So here they are learning English. And it was really neat, very interesting. Yeah, so I did that, and all this time nothing was happening about getting married, except, I should say, in between here, before I ever went to Mexico, I had heard that Herman had got married, and that after 11 months, he lost his first wife. And I thought, I wonder what's going to happen here now. And I even contacted him during that time. I was very brave, huh?
Yeah.
I contacted him, but he says now that he was dating his second wife already then when I contacted him. And yet I'm not too sure, because when I think of, we were sometimes talk on the phone, and I sent him some letters, and he didn't say anything about dating another lady right then. So I'm not sure just if he kind of forgot how it went, and I have my side of how it went, and he has his side. But whatever, nothing became of that. I ended up thinking, no, I cannot leave this church. This is the only way I can. What am I going to do up there in the big bad world? I don't know anything about how to live out there.
And at this point, you're probably about, what, 20?
I was in my mid-20s then, I believe. Yeah. Close, maybe getting into my late 20s, yeah.
What's the age difference between you and Herman?
3 years.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, so I would be in my late, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so anyways, I decided, no, I better not go any further with this. And so I decided I had to change my mind about that and just keep on with the Holdeman Church. After all, it's the best way to go, and the only one true church, and you can't leave it. Even though I would question things about it, I knew that questioning did not go over very well. And so I would just, go on with my life. And then like I said, I went to Mexico, I went to Belize, came back to Canada, worked at different places. And then I ended up going to Silver Valley, which is another congregation in the Northland here. And where my sister was living, she has a handicapped child, and I was helping her with her child. And I worked with my niece for about 6 years altogether. Part of the time I had her in my own home because my sister was just having a very hard time coping. And so I became like her second mother to my niece. She's very dear to me. She's still living, and she lives not too far from me right now in an institution. She's 29 now. Anyway, she was like my child. I didn't have my own children, so I mothered her. And yes, and during that time, I think I was up there. I was working with my niece, and Herman contacts me. One night I come home, and there's a message on the phone from Herman, and he said he sent me some stuff in the mail, and I listened to his message, and I thought, oh my goodness, what's going on here? Just out of the blue here now, he's contacting me, and I'm like, I'm not sure what this is all about. And so I look at this.
Now there had been years, right? Because he'd been married to that second wife for years.
He was with her for 26 years. I remember hearing that she had died. And so I thought, now what is he going to do? But I just kind of like, okay, I'm an older man, and
okay, but did Herman's mother, did you work at a nursing home where Herman's mother was, or not
Yes,
yet in the
yes,
story?
right. I did work at the Ridge Valley home in between some of this here, and so I would sometimes I knew who his wife was. I had met her because she would come there to visit sometimes too, or they both would. Him
Okay,
and
so you did see Herman during that
yeah,
time. It's not like, you know, he was dating and then suddenly I'm married and then nothing and then I sent you
yeah.
something in the mail. Okay.
No, I
Okay.
didn't see him that often, but once
Right.
in a while, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I did take care of his mother, so yeah, that was kind of like. So then she dies, and then I'm like, whoa, what, what now? But I just kind of, whatever. And then, what was it? Oh, it was a Valentine's Day card that he sent me, I believe. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, what's going on here? And yeah, then he sends me this stuff, and I end up looking at it and debating, what am I going to do with this? Like,
Okay. The stuff he sent you, that was the Vivian Stoppel papers?
yes, and then there was some other stuff, like he's into USANA nutritional, and he had sent papers on that, and I don't remember what all was in there, and I was just like, this is overwhelming. What's he sending me all this junk? And I end up taking it to to the preacher in Crooked Creek, because I know them well. I'm good friends with them. And I said, what do I do with all this stuff? And he knew Herman too, and he knew of him. And I said, I don't know what to do with this. I'm not sure. And he says, I'll look after it. So he kept it.
I bet.
Yeah. And then, how did it go next? Then, anyways, I thought that, if I can't believe that he would want to start pursuing me now. And after all these years, and I'm
Because how old were you by now?
I was about 56 already. And I've been in this church for a long time. And sure, I still would like to get married. I'd like to have a husband and someone to love me and take care of me and whatever. But I can't do this. This is not gonna, God, what do you want me to do, kind of thing. And I'm a Holdeman, and I'll be expelled if I do this, and I'll lose my family friends. I'll be whatever. It's just too overwhelming. So yeah, I take it to this preacher and his wife, and he says, I'll take care of that.
Yeah. You go back to your life and I'll handle this. Don't worry about it.
So I end up and I'm in a turmoil about no, I didn't really get into a big turmoil yet. I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is strange. What's going on here? But I end up going back. I was at Silver Valley at the time when he sent me all this stuff, and I end up going back to Crooked Creek, to the home there, the old folks home there, the seniors home where I had worked before. I end up going back there. They needed an administrator, and they even asked me as a woman to be an administrator. And I'm thinking, that doesn't happen very often. It's a small place, but I'd worked there enough years. I knew the ins and outs of that place like nobody did. And I just thought, well, maybe she can handle this. And by that time, I knew that I was burning out with looking after my niece, and it was time for a change again. So I ended up going back to Crooked Creek and working as the administrator. And then after I worked there about a year, my mother passes away in BC, and Herman sends me a sympathy card. And I'm like, okay, he's still thinking about me, is it? And so, so then that happens. And then I start really, wondering what God, what is this all about? What do you want me to do? are you actually telling me that I should go leave the church? Because he has found his peace with God. He's feeling that God has told him that he shouldn't leave that church, because he comes to Crooked Creek for some, and even attends a meeting there at a revival meeting time or something. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe he's going to come back to the church. Right. And then we can maybe get married, huh? And no, that doesn't happen. Then God showed him. He really showed him what he's supposed to do. Well, he doesn't need to go back to the church. So then I'm left again. I'm thinking, oh, Lord, whatever. Now, I don't know. It just seemed like my mind was just like, I could not forget about him. I could not. I told God, I said, if you don't want me to marry him, please take this away from me. And it just felt like, no, it was just there and it would not leave. And I was, thinking, well, maybe I could still be a Christian. And, am I going to still be saved if I leave the church? I've been told I won't be. I'll go to hell. And I'm battling with this for a long time. And finally, I decided, I did tell him no a couple of times. I just can't go on with this. And then it would just come back to me, and I just could not lay it down. And finally, I decided I have to quit my job. I can't. The job as administrator was quite stressful at that time, and this all going through my mind. I decided I need to quit and take some time off and just relax. And so I put in my resignation at the home there, and I still have about 2 months left to work. And I'm still debating about this and wondering what I should do. And finally, I decided I need to meet with him face to face and talk with him and see if there's really that any chemistry, any vibe, anything there that, is this just all my imagination? So I talked with a good friend of mine who had been expelled a couple of years before, and she had married a fellow out of the church. And she was still living there at Crooked Creek, not too far from me. So I talked with her and told her the whole story. And she says now that I told her twice. I came there 2 evenings in a row and just poured it all out to her. And finally, I decided that, I should meet him, but I didn't want to meet him in a restaurant because, somebody's going to see us. And then all these stories are going to go. People are going to start blabbing. Because there was a lot of gossip going on in the church, sad to say. Yeah, there just is a lot of gossip that goes on. And so my friend Flo decided that, we'll invite him to our place and you can meet him here. So she invited him to their place for a supper, and we ended up meeting at her house. And we had a nice chat during the supper, and I was, of course, very nervous and wondering how this is all going to go. And then after supper,
because this is the first time.
Pardon?
This is your first time seeing him in quite a few years, correct?
Yeah. Yes, it is. So then, we have supper together, and after supper, him and I go out to my friend's beautiful backyard and continue visiting. And by the end of that evening, I knew what I wanted. This was the way I was going to go. God would see me through. I didn't know how, but he was going to see me through. And I knew that first, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding, that he would lead me no matter what happened. And so, yes, we ended up that evening deciding that, yes, we were going to start dating. And then, of course, the other turmoil started, how to deal with people. There was a law. It caused a big I caused a big scandal, a big uproar, because if nobody had expected that of me.
I believe that.
Yeah, I had always, I was just hoping.
Had you already quit? The 2 months was already over and you weren't working anymore as an administrator?
Actually, this was all happening in the 2 months I was still, having to work. And so I had quit just a couple of days before I met him. So yes, I did not have any time to just relax because I ended up then dating him right after I quit my job. And that was another funny thing, was when I was quitting my job and I told them that I was quitting in 2 months. I told the board, and then they had found another person, a guy that was going to take over as administrator. And I said, I'm leaving the end of June, and that's the last day. And they wouldn't even bring him in to. I thought, well, surely they want to have him come in and meet with me, and just I could give him some orientation as to what was going on, and et cetera, et cetera. But no, they didn't bring him in. And then after I had quit, I came there one day because they wanted to have a bit of a farewell with me. Some of the residents wanted me to be there, and they were going to have tea with me or whatever. So I went there, and then the board wanted to have a meeting with me and this new administrator. And I said, no, I quit my job. I'm done. I gave you lots of time. I gave you 2 months. I couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah, now you want me to meet with you. I'm sorry. I'm done. I was naughty, but I just couldn't handle a lot. I figured I'd given him so much time. Goodbye. And so I had told Herman, so we started dating, and I would sometimes go to Peace River, which is about 2.5 hours from Crooked Creek, where I was living at the time. And so I'd come up here sometimes, and then I would stay with the pastor and his wife, who was the pastor of the Baptist church where Herman was attending. I'd stay with them. They took me under their wing. They were very good to me. And I'd stay with them when I...
Okay, but I want to know, so did you tell your good friends, the ministers that held those papers for you, that you were, how did you come out with this?
I was trying to think how I actually came out with all that. Eventually, yes, I guess it went around by word of mouth that I was leaving. I told some people, of course. I don't know if I actually told. Oh yes, what happened? Yeah, they heard that I was leaving. I didn't really tell the minister and his wife personally, but eventually the story got around that I was leaving, and yeah, different people heard about it, and then there was one point in this was the end of June. I had quit. I think it was in about the middle of July. Then I was invited to this minister's house to have a meeting with him and his wife and some of the other staff or people. And I thought, good grief, I'm not going there by myself. I at this point, I could not handle it by myself. And I thought, okay, I'm going to tell Herman about this. And Herman says, I'm going to go with you. And I said to Herman, I said, I'm not going to tell them you're coming with me. But I agreed to a meeting with them. And I show up there with Herman. I'm sneaky. And they're all like, oh, yeah, nice you came, And here they thought they were getting me by myself, but they didn't. They got Herman too.
Good. So good for you. Good for you.
So that meeting went okay because I had someone there to stick up for me, tell his side of the story, etc. And yeah, so it wasn't just the minister. There were 2 ministers there, and then there was also the chairman of the board from the home where I'd been working, because he knew me very well. So him and his wife were there. It was kind of interesting, but yeah, to them, I heard later they had said that this is kind of like a funeral because, I'm leaving the church. And to me, I'm excited. I'm inviting them all to my wedding. Because we knew by then that we were getting married. And later on, there was even a farewell for me at the Ridge Valley home because they, I had worked there a number of years and had been the administrator, and I had done this and that there. I guess they thought they needed to put on a farewell for me. And I didn't even want one because I thought, oh no, I can't handle this. But yeah, I did end up going, and it was kind of just kind of an awkward situation. But they gave me a lovely gift, and we had a lovely meal. And then at the end, I invited everybody to my wedding too. Yeah. But no, it was very hard telling my friends and family, and especially my family, the ones that were not in the church. I do have 3 sisters now that are not in the church. 2 never joined, and the one is expelled. And at that time, my father was still living, and I needed to tell him. My sister in NDB, the one that's in the church, she's still single. She had told me that I am not telling Dad. You have to come here and tell him yourself. I found that very hard to go because I knew that I was going to get a lot of static there. But I did end up going. I flew down there, and my brother and my brother picked me up, and he's a very staunch Holdeman. And I thought, oh dear, how am I going to face him? But I got through that. I did stay with him and his wife for a night or two, but his wife was giving me a lot of static. And so I finally ended up asking my sister, who's not in the church and living there with her husband, I asked her if I could stay with them. I don't care where you put me. If you have a bed for me somewhere, I want to stay with you. I can't handle it here anymore. And so they let me come to their place, and I survived the rest of my stay there. It was a hard time. Like I told my dad, and it was really, but what the stupid thing was, by the time, when I did get there, an uncle of mine had blabbed the news to my dad before I got there. And I thought, oh no, this is crazy. So he was all distressed when I got there already. But anyways, I hated doing that to my father, but this was the way I felt that I was going to go now. And my poor father, yeah, it was very hard on him. But anyways, after I left, after we were married, I would still call my dad. He would call me, and as long as he could still talk on the phone, he was in a nursing home at that time. As long as he could still talk on the phone, we would talk. And then at the end of the conversation, he would always say, "And when are you coming back to the church?" Because you and Herman can both come back. And one of the last conversations I had with him before he couldn't talk on the phone anymore, he asked me how my marriage was going. Is Herman good to you, etc. That was such a precious conversation. He cared about me. He wasn't just asking, when am I coming back to the church? And yeah, he passed away at the age of almost 93. But yes, that was a hard trip. But I survived. I came back, and then I thought, okay, now I'm free. I've done the last thing I need to do to break those ties, or to tell people that I'm leaving. Sure, there's still people that are finding out, and people are still calling me and phoning me and trying to visit with me and trying to change my mind and, all that stuff. But I knew where I was at. I knew what I wanted. And I knew that God was going to see me through. I felt that God was calling me out of the church. And so, yeah, I ended up getting married August 31st of 2008. I was 58 years old. And then I was not expelled until a couple of weeks later. I was not expelled before I was married, which I found interesting. I thought I would be because they knew I was going to do it. But I guess they really had no reason to expel me before I actually did get married, which I found interesting. I never did tell them that I had taken communion at the Baptist church. Maybe if I would have told them that, they would have expelled me sooner. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they would have, because that's a no-no. But I do remember the freedom I felt after I decided what I was going to do. I started buying skirts and blouses, and I didn't get into pants right away. I slowly, I started wearing my hair down, and I thought, well, this is so nice to have this freedom and not stick out in the crowd wearing the black thing. that had always been kind of a trial to me, wearing the head covering and sticking out in a crowd, and people asking you what you're wearing on your head and why you're wearing it. If that's the only reason they know you're a Christian, then forget it, right? I guess that's why I just, as soon as I knew I was leaving, I ditched that head covering. It went in the garbage. I just didn't want to wear that anymore. And it didn't take too long after I was married. I started wearing pants, slacks, jeans. It was getting cold winter. And hey, that's going to be much warmer and it's so comfortable. I thought, oh, okay, yay. And all those things, it was like always, something new happening. But what's so important to me is through all this, God has shown me that I could break free from the religious spirit. And he has certainly shown me that it is not by works. In all these things that you do, how you dress, that's not the most important thing. It's what's in your heart. And as time has gone on, I've really realized that more and more. And I don't call myself, I just call myself a Christian. I believe it. I don't say I'm a Baptist, though I am a member of the Baptist church, but I just believe that Christ is here for all Christians. It doesn't matter, the one true church thing. No, it's not there. And even in the Baptist church, sometimes it's kind of like some of them, okay, you got to do it the Baptist way. And I say, nope, I'm not there. I don't go there. I've left one church, and I'm not going to say this church is the right church. There is no way. Yes. Let's see, what else do I want to bring out about that? Yeah, God has been good to me. And my husband has been good to me, and he loves me and takes care of me. And I've never had to work after I got married because it was up to me if I wanted to work. And I did work for a while, but it was he was working at the time too, my husband. And on my days off, he'd be working and vice versa. And he wanted me home, and he was home. So I figured, hey, I don't have to work. He's earning enough money. And that was good. Yeah, and through the years, I've done different things that I would never have done before. I joined Toastmasters for about 5 years. That was good for me. I learned speaking skills. I learned to be confident, to be a leader if I needed to be. I also did some trail running for a few years in my 70s. No, I started in 2017, 2018, I did a few years of trail running, and I really enjoyed that. I did 5K, 10K races. I even did a 20K race, a half marathon, up a mountain and down. So yes, I've been able to do things that I would never have done before. And there's nothing bad about them. They're all good. I've also, been very involved in my ladies' Bible study at the Baptist church, which has really been helpful for me to study the Bible, because I felt like I never really learned how to study the Bible and how to even have a really personal relationship with God. And I've also been part of a Celebrate Recovery group for a few years, and I ended up becoming a leader in there. Now that group kind of fell apart, but through that, I felt like God called me to. I felt the real compassion for women in need, especially the First Nations ladies. I made a friend with a lot of them, and yes, so God has really shown me that we each have our own gifts. We can serve in the way that He wants us to serve. There aren't just specific ways for women to, there are many ways that women can serve Him. Like in the Holdeman church, what do you do? I keep thinking, what if I was still single? What would I be doing? Would I just be quilting and and all that stuff? Are you there?
You'd probably already cashed in your chips.
Pardon?
You might have already cashed in your chips if you were still in the Holdeman church and single, and you'll be like, well, what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what I'd be doing. Yeah.
So when your grandparents left and your uncles and stuff, like, how was your relationship or your parents' relationship with them? Did they're still with their parents and things like that? Because by what you said, it sounds like they left the Holdemans just because they did not believe of the one true church doctrine, which I know is big enough for them to expel you over. But so
But
how
my
was your
parents,
relationship?
we still got together with them. Yeah, they ended up moving away, my uncle and aunt, my grandparents, but we still have family reunions and see them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to check and see if there was anything else that I should be talking about. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, I loved that. And by the sounds of it, you just fit right into Herman's family. The girls took right to you, and it's just you became a grandma.
Yes,
You said,
the girls have been very good to me, but of course, I'm not their mother. They don't call me mother, which is understandable because, I mean, hey, they were on their own. They were adults when we got married, when Herman and I got married. But yes, like I say, they've been very good to me. I don't feel as close to the one in Edmonton. She professes no Christianity, and her ideas are not mine. You know, it's just very different ideas. I find it difficult sometimes to spend much time with her, but we don't spend a whole lot of time with them. But I know when her kids were, especially her oldest one, she's 7 now. When she was little, her daughter and I really bonded. Like she was my granddaughter, and now she's getting older. It's getting a little different, but they're still our grandkids, and yeah, I love them. Yes,
very good.
Yes, I enjoy his family.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate you sharing your story. I after hearing Herman tell his, it was so funny. I'm like, I have got to meet your wife, and I want to hear her story because
Yeah,
from, being an administrator at a Holdeman ran facility to leaving with, I was like, how did that all work? And how did it happen? Like, how did it go down? I want to hear like the human side of that. You
uh-huh.
know, there were things and feelings and ideas in there and stuff, but okay, so you'd quit, you'd already quit, and then you met him and for dinner, and then you knew you were leaving. So basically you quit being the administrator and took off your head covering, is how it
Right.
probably looked to them.
Yeah, exactly. No. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember when
You
I
know,
was administrative, there were times when I felt frustrated, very frustrated, because I was the administrator, and yet the board was supposed to speak for me, the chairman of the board or whoever. If there was something that should be brought before the congregation, I couldn't bring it. They would bring it. And I would sit there and think, that's not how I would have said it. you know, and it was quite frustrating at times because a woman is not supposed to do too much speaking, right? And I found that hard. No.
yeah. Most likely why he was at that meeting, him and his wife, because it was going to be an intervention for you. They were going to tell you that, show you the way that the wayward ideas that you had gotten in your head and help you purge them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there you had a trick up your sleeve, and you brought all Herman, and he a thing or two about a thing or two.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Oh, that would have been funny. Okay, very good.
oh
No,
yeah. I still have,
Rosina, I really go ahead.
I still have good friends there. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't have a whole lot to do with them, but there's people there. They're still friendly and that, and I love them. That's where I came from, and they are my heritage, whatever. But God has shown me a different way, and I don't have to live like that anymore. And that I can live in the freedom of the spirit.
Yes. And so many people that end up leaving the Holdeman religion, that is what they talk about, that freedom and that happiness that they find in the spirit. And, the Holdeman way of thinking is like, oh, no, that's deceived. They're deceived. That's why they're happy. No, no,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it is a freedom that comes without someone telling me what God is saying that I need to do or not do, look or not look, say or not say, be or not be. I get
Mm-hmm.
to be. And that's what's so interesting to me is that the Bible talks about how we are created uniquely. And yet
Right.
we're supposed to all conform and be the same way. How,
Mm-hmm.
it's like hiding. Oh, and then I think of the people and their talents. And, isn't that just like that Bible story about hiding the talents that they had? I know that it was money
Right.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I mean, it's literally like the talents he gives it, some of them, that they're painters and speakers and
Yeah.
writers and
Right.
all of these wonderful, amazing gifts. But
Mm-hmm.
because they are a part of that religion, they're not able to use them and to shine the way,
Yeah.
in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, God created them to shine.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
oh, but thank you so much for coming on and telling us your story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, as the years have gone by, what I was going to say with my family, my older sister who's single, her and I, of course, did a lot of stuff together because we were both single.
Mhm.
But in the beginning, too, it was kind of awkward because she found it very hard that I'd left the church. But now, she's come so far. She even came to visit me a number of years ago. She, I want to see where you live. She's not able to do a whole lot of traveling anymore due to health issues, but we talk on the phone. She calls me all the time. And there's just hardly any barriers there anymore. And it's amazing how God has, worked that all out. And then I have a sister not too far from me who she and her husband are expelled now too. So yeah, so half my family is still in the church, but having all these sisters that aren't, that's really been good. And my sister who's now expelled, they were still in the church when I got married, and they came to my wedding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they actually did. Now a lot of the people at Crow Creek wanted to come to my wedding, or a number of them, but just a bit before I got married, they were told in a council meeting that they should not attend. And I thought, boy, oh boy, what power they have. Over the,
Yes, exactly. Wow.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you had the forbidden marriage or wedding.
yeah.
Yeah. But I have a sister also who left the church. Has it been 2.5 years ago now, I think? And oh, it's been so lovely having her to just to be with, to do things
Yeah.
with, talk to, and now to understand a lot of the things before that she just couldn't understand. She lived
Mm-hmm,
this lifestyle and that's what it was. And so now to have her on this
mm-hmm.
side of that divide, it is so lovely. My
How
parents
old is
don't think
she?
it's lovely, but I do.
How old is she?
She is 2.5 years older than I am.
Whatever that is.
Okay. So I am 44, so
Oh, okay.
47, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that.
You're 44. You look younger than that.
Well, thank you. Yes. So yes, she has grown children, but
Oh,
like her youngest is 18 and
oh,
but I have babies. My youngest is 4.5.
oh, really?
Yep. So I have a 4.5 and an 8.5-year-old.
So you got married when you were older?
I did. But I had my daughter when I was single. She was 1 years old when I married my husband.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so and then we had the second daughter. We weren't planning to have any children, but we did.
Oh,
And well, I mean, but she was a volunteer. They both
yeah.
were volunteers. Anyways, but
Mhm.
yeah, we live
Was your
pardon?
was your husband a member of the Holdeman Church too?
Yep, when he was,
Mm.
in his youth. He was,
Oh,
and we had known each other back then. And so
oh,
that's why your story about where you said, well, I really need to see him, see, because my husband and I had been friends since we were 15. I was 15 and he was 18.
oh,
And life went its separate way. He left the church and
oh, yeah.
got married, had a child and got married. And I left the church and had a first marriage. And then I got divorced. And
Mhm.
several years later, I asked one of my friends, I said, "Hey, how's Jared Esau? Like, do you ever hear from him? Like, what's going on with him?" And he's like, "Yeah, you want his number." So he gave me his number, and we struck up our friendship as if it had never had no time had
Oh,
passed between us.
that's
And
wonderful.
yes, yes, we loved it. So then we were friends. That was 2012, and we
Okay.
didn't get married until 2017.
Oh,
February
yeah.
2017 is when him and I got married. But so then that Christmas before, so Christmas 2016, he says, "Hey, okay, let's do this thing." He said, "I know you're going to Mississippi, can I meet you there? And just make sure that we had seen each other one time during those years, in 2015, in the spring
Oh,
of
yeah.
2015. So he said, "I'd like to come and meet your daughter and just, see how this goes." And so I said, "Okay." So he met me in Mississippi. He came there because we were living in Oregon, my daughter and I, where my
Oh,
sister, who is now no longer a member, lived. And
okay.
so we met, and my daughter and him took, like they had always known each other, just took off. So I was like, "Okay." He said, "Well, I'd like you to come down in February and just see if you can see yourself like moving here and living like in this
Mm.
area." And I'm like, "Okay." And well, my sister, she was still a member at the time. So she had a little bit of a hissy fit. I think more because my daughter was like her daughter, and here we
Right.
were going to move
Mhm.
across the country from her, and she
Mm.
was losing.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I think it was more that than anything else. And so, anyways, but she said, "But with that being said, I love you. I want to be part of this. And you and Jared know better. So why don't you just get married? You both have children. Like he has one son that's 22, I think. She said, you both have children. Why don't you just get married?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So I just joke. I told it to Jared, but I was like joking because I mean, no, that was way too new to be getting married. And he said,
Yeah.
"I've been thinking about the same thing." He says, "You pack a ring and I'll take care, no, pack a dress." He said, "Pack a dress and I'll take care of everything else."
Oh,
He did. I
well,
packed a dress and I bought him a ring and I flew over here. My daughter stayed there with my sister. And
mhm.
I flew over here and we got married in the cutest little chapel.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had yes, it's been good. His parents are still Holdeman, and they live 2/3 of a mile up the road from us.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Hmm.
And he works on the family farm. We raise
Oh,
hybrid bass. And
mhm.
so, yeah.
That's interesting. I found interesting my maiden name is Esau, so
Yeah.
that's, but I don't think there's any relation. I don't know. There might be a
Because
way back.
I ran the names that Herman gave me by him, and he's like, "I don't recognize any of
No.
them." But come to find
Mm.
out, well, I should ask him that now though, because his father just sent him, and some of his people come from Canada prior to going to California.
Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So yeah,
Interesting.
but
Yeah. Hmm.
so that's a little bit, yeah, of my story. So when you said that, I was like, "Yep, I know that how that works."
Hmm.
Anyways, but thank you. I appreciate it. I loved hearing your story. I love, like I said, hearing Herman's, I knew we had to hear your story.
Yeah.
So I really,
Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
okay.
Thank you for listening. It is an honor to connect with our guests, and we wish the best for them as well as our listeners. Remember to like and subscribe for more episodes. Our People can be found on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube. If you are interested in sharing your story, please contact us at ourpeoplepodcastteam@gmail.com. Thank you.